In this video, we're going to see how to refactor two fragments to make a common superclass fragment that serves both of those. Why do we want to do this? If we take a look at our existing user interface, we have this screen, which is essentially a specimen screen, and it has an opportunity where we can take a photo. If we take a look at the event details screen, we might want to take photos that correspond to events as well, and we certainly don't want to copy and paste. We want to have some shared logic that we can push up into a superclass. The other advantage is, by having the shared logic in a superclass, it makes our subclasses a bit more concise and a bit more easy to manage. In other words, let's take a look at our class diagram that we're using for this project, and I've added a couple of classes that represent both of our fragments, the main fragment and the event fragment. Right now, even though they're coordinated by this main activity, they don't really relate to each other in any other way. So what I'm going to do is, here in Argo, press this up arrow, which indicates a superclass, and let's call this a diary fragment. So we can add a connection to the event fragment as well. We simply select, drag the arrow as soon as we can grab it, drag the arrow and plop, and now we see we have this common superclass where we're going to put things like the ability to take a photo, and also shortly we're also going to add an adapter and a view model, which we can use in a recycler view, which will also share some logic across these two fragments. So let's jump right in. Here I have the main fragment, which has some of the functions that I want to move up into a common superclass, like take photo. If I already had the superclass, I could do this pretty easily. I simply right-click and I choose Refactor, and then I choose pull members up, which means move them to that superclass. But you notice it gives me an error here, cannot perform refactoring, because it doesn't notice a superclass. In other words, if we scroll up to the top, we see that it's simply extending from Fragment, which is not a class that we created. So let's go ahead and make a superclass. I'll put it in the same package as my other fragments, and I'll simply choose Kotlin file class. We'll choose class here, and we're going to call this diary fragment. Since this is a plant diary, we're kind of using this as a common superclass for all of our fragments. Go ahead and add it to GitHub. Now, we want to maintain the existing hierarchy where we are extending from the fragment class, which is provided to us by the Android library, just like so, Android X in our case. One other thing we need to do, and this is a little different if you're used to using Java. In Kotlin, by default, all classes are final, which means they can't be extended. If we want one that's non-final, we have to say open. That's the opposite of Java, where classes are only final if you declare it. In Kotlin, classes are only not final if you declare them open. So at this point, at least, we have this class. Now let's go to our main fragment, and instead of having it extend fragment, we have it extend diary fragment, just like so. So it still has that connection to the fragment superclass. It just has one additional hop to get there. We can also go to our event fragment and make the same change. With this, we have the hierarchy that I mentioned in Argo just a moment ago. We've now made this connection right here. Now back to our main fragment, and we can start to pull some of these functions up. Most of them are going to be straightforward. We only want to extract things that are related to taking and saving an image. We don't need to pull up anything else because we're not going to share anything else at this moment. There's one function that is going to be a little bit tricky, and that is on request permission result. This is when we hear back from the user who's requested or denied a permission. And you see in this case, we're doing two different things. We're handling the camera and we're handling the location. So we're going to need to take a little extra caution on this one. The other functions are going to be very straightforward. So note that I have main fragment, and just take a look at a few of the functions that I'm about to move up. We have prep take photo, that's one. Take photo and create image file. Those are some of the ones I'm going to move up, and notice right now they're in main fragment KT. But watch what happens when I refactor and I say pull members up, and I'm going to select, let's see, take photo, we definitely need. Prep take photo, where we're looking for permissions, we need that one as well. Create image file, we're going to need that one as well. And a few constants, yeah, okay, so we're going to need our photo URI. Let's go ahead and bring that up. Photo path. These are essentially the member variables that those functions require. And you notice that Android Studio is kind enough to highlight those in red to tell me, hey, I think you're going to need this guy. As a matter of fact, let me go ahead and bring up val image request code as well. Just take another look here. I think for the moment that's all we're going to need. So let's go ahead and choose Refactor. And now take a look at main fragment. You'll notice that it is significantly smaller than it was before. So I can still clean up these imports, but you notice that it doesn't have the take photo or the prep take photo function, so it's a much more concise, easier to understand class. Now we still have to do the onRequestPermissionResult. We'll come back to that in just a moment. For the moment though, let's go up to diary fragment, this common superclass, because I have a feeling we might have some work to do here. And sure enough, it has a whole bunch of references that I need to import, so I can do it one by one if I wish, or I can go in and I can say code, and then we can say optimize imports like so, and we can have it work us through. Some of these are straightforward, like package manager, intent, and I'm just letting it walk me through one by one and choosing all to enter to say, yeah, these are the ones that I want. So it does a little bit of magic here. Looks like we still have a couple to go. File provider, simple date format, and environment. Okay, date's a tricky one because you notice with date we have two options, java.util and java.sql. This is where it really helps to be explicit on imports. 95% of the time, the one that you want as a Java programmer is java.util, but you notice that here we have two classes with the same name in two different packages. Let's go ahead and grab java.util. And at this point, our superclass has 4 functions in it, and these functions look very straightforward. Again, very concise. They're just involved with taking a photo. Now let's do the tricky one, onRequestPermissionResult. So we'll go to our main fragment one more time. And Control 12 is a good shortcut that will allow us to start typing onRequestPermissionResult. And it actually pulled up on my second monitor so you didn't see it, but Control 12, just a nice IntelliJ Android Studio shortcut. You can start typing a function name and it will take you right to that function. So what we have is when, which is essentially a switch case statement in Kotlin. So switch this variable, then these are the different cases that it could be. In other words, it's like an if test. If request code equals camera permission request code, then do this. Else if request code equals location permission request code, then do this. Just think of it as an if test with different syntax. So we want to use just the camera permission request code, and we want to take that up into the superclass, but we want to leave the location permission request code down here in this subclass. I'm going to go ahead and copy this entire function. And now here in this subclass, I'm just going to delete camera permission request code because that's what we're moving upstairs. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to put another case. One thing we can do in Kotlin is we can have an else case, which means if no other case matched the switch up here, then it falls down and it does whatever this else is. And for the else, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a call to the superclass to handle anything not handled here. And actually, we're already doing that on line 155. We just kind of have it in a curious area. Reason being, we're actually already overriding this function onRequestPermissionResult from that super class called Fragment. And anytime you're overriding a function, it's considered good practice to make a super call to that function you're overriding. I kind of just left it in here at a weird location, but now that we're putting some logic into this, it makes more sense to say, you know what, if it's location permission request code, don't worry, I have it handled here. Otherwise, I'm going to go up to my superclass called diary fragment. I'm going to delegate logic up to that superclass and the method onRequestPermissionResult up there, and have that decide what to do if I can't handle it locally here. So let's just replicate that super line. We'll say super.onRequestPermissionResult, and then, yep, it filled in the blanks for us. And really, because we have it called down there, we don't really need it up here anymore. We know that we're taking care of what we can here. What we can't, we simply delegate up above. Okay, that finishes off our main fragment, and so now let's go back to our diary fragment, and let's finish up what we're doing here. So, okay, we already have those functions we've refactored up here, and now I'm going to put down our new function. Now, notice that we don't need to worry about location permission request code here, because remember, again, we're in the superclass diary fragment. Diary fragment at this time only knows about create permission request code. So I'm going to delete out that line there, the location permission. For good practice, let's go ahead and add an else in here and say, you know what, if we can't handle it here, let's push it up one more level. Let's push it up to our super then. And like so. Now I know that's a bit of hopping around, and that's where I really like diagrams like this. So let's take a look at it on this diagram. I've added one more class, which is the fragment that comes with the Android API. In other words, those Android libraries we get. This one not created by us, but previously it's what our main fragment and our event fragment had inherited from until we added this intermediate class here. As we have it right now, on request permission result, if we're hearing back from location permission, it handles it here. If not, it says, I don't know what to do, I'm going to push it up one level. So it pushes it up one level with that super keyword, and that goes to diary fragment, and diary fragment says, okay, if this is a camera request, I can handle it. If not, I'm going to push it up one more level. I'm going to push it up to the fragment that comes from Android. At this point, I'm very happy with our inheritance hierarchy. And after a quick gut check, I just confirmed that the build works and that it installs properly on the emulator, and sure enough, there it goes, it appears. So what we'll do in our next video is we'll look at how to add the camera feature to the event screen so that we can take a picture for an event and we can associate it with the event. I look forward to seeing you there. Thank you.